Hey young friends, Dr. Bill here. I am so glad you could join me for today's lesson. We're continuing our look at the big names in the Bible, and today we're going to talk about someone new, and that person is Elisha. Elisha was a prophet very much like Elijah, the person that we've talked about for the last several lessons. Elisha's story begins about the time that Elijah is about to be taken up into heaven by God. Now this story comes to us from 2 Kings chapter 2, and it's a very unusual story. So let me see if I can explain it to you for a bit, and then we'll see if there's anything that we can learn from it. As the story opens, Elijah is about to be taken up into heaven by God. And Elisha wants very much to become the prophet in Elijah's place. And so as the story goes, Elijah begins this long roundabout journey to different places. And 3 times he says to Elisha, I'm about to go here. You stay here and wait for me. And Elisha says, no, I will not do that. I am going to follow you wherever you go. As I said, this happens 3 times until finally the time comes when Elijah is about to be taken up into heaven. And then Elijah asks Elisha, before I go, is there anything you want me to do for you? And Elisha says, I would like to have a double portion of your spirit. In other words, I would like to be twice as good and twice as powerful as you are. Well, as the chapter goes and the story unfolds, Elijah is taken up into heaven, and indeed Elisha receives that double portion of Elijah's spirit. So, what are we to make of this very, very unusual story? The first thing is this. Elisha shows us what faithfulness really looks like. Now, I know a lot of times we think about faith in terms of what we believe in our heads or what we feel in our hearts. Elisha shows us that faith is something we do. Notice how this plays out. Elisha refuses to give up on Elijah. 3 times Elijah tells Elisha, hey, stay where you are, I'm going on ahead. And Elisha 3 times responds, no, I am going to stay with you. Elisha models something that is very important in faithfulness, and that is persistence, sticking with someone. And so Elisha shows us that faith is about sticking with God, keeping on with God, even and more importantly, especially when our journeys don't seem to make any sense, when our lives don't seem to be going anywhere. It's almost as if we're traveling in a circle. Elisha shows us that sticking with God, even when the journey doesn't make sense, well, that's very much a part of what it means to be faithful. That's very much a part of what it means to live and to be a person who is willing to do God's will. So remember, faith is not just what we think, nor is it what we feel, it's what we do. And Elisha shows that he sticks with God. That's what his faithfulness looks like. The second thing is this. Elisha took over for Elijah. As soon as Elijah was taken up into heaven, Elisha picked up Elijah's mantle. That was a piece of clothing that Elijah wore around his robe. And that piece of cloth was symbolic. In other words, it was a picture. In picking up this piece of clothing that Elijah wore and putting it on himself, Elisha was simply saying, I am the new prophet. I am now the one who will work and do the things that Elijah did. Now, the important lesson here is that God always leaves someone around to tell us what we need to do and what we need to be about. Elijah was passing from the scene. Elijah was a huge figure, very important. And naturally we would think, well, there's nobody who could fill Elijah's shoes. And that's right. But that doesn't mean that God simply said, okay, I am not going to have anybody around who will keep telling the people what they need to do. No, God always has someone to keep God's work going. In other words, God never ever leaves us alone. God always brings forth people who will keep trying to tell us and keep trying to teach us what it is that God is interested in and what God wants from us. So that's it for today. 2 very important lessons from the prophet Elisha. Now we're going to take a few more lessons to look at the things that Elisha said and did in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, again, I thank you for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the week. I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. Take care. Bye-bye.